Hey everyone, welcome to the Wild Bit Show. I'm Upamanyu,
And I'm Meghna.
and we have got a great show planned for you. We have our headline topic today, which is about the pangolins, one of the most trafficked mammals in the world. We will be talking about that. There's quite a bit of coverage on that this week. There is also some trophy hunting related news where Trump has allowed 300 plus elephant trophy imports in 2025. There's also some news about the Persian leopard, where and the pressures it's facing in the wild. And other than that, there is also some AI related news that we will touch upon. What else do we have, Meghna? Oh, I think Meghna is facing some technical difficulties again. So I'll just cover the list of topics that Meghna sort of will introduce. There is a story from Zambia where new technologies and radio and things like that are helping conserve wildlife. There is also a story from Europe where a record number of dams are being dismantled in order to aid conservation efforts and conservation. And there is also the story about sort of the palm oil and things like that, and orangutans. I think we have followed the story for a bit, so Meghna will introduce that as well. And I think other than that, we, as always, we have some shorter stories and some species updates that we will be covering if we have time as well. Right, right. Why don't we get started with the um, headline topic? This is about pangolins, and I think, I, in my mind at least, like I've been wondering when a story about pangolins would come up because pangolins are facing one of the greatest pressures, as is evident from our headline topic, where it says the most trafficked mammal. It is the most trafficked mammal in the world. This is a story from National Geographic, and it says dramatic rescues of pangolins and other rare wildlife can start with a single message. So this goes on to read that Southeast Asia is a hotspot for illegal wildlife trade, where non-profit organizations utilizing hotlines significantly impact animal rescues. Free the Bears in Laos, specializing in rehabilitating rescued wildlife, exemplifies this. The group received an urgent tip from Spanish tourist John Hernandez about a live pangolin being transported in a minivan. Pangolins are critically endangered and the world's most trafficked mammal. Hernandez grew suspicious during his minivan journey when the driver made an unexpected detour to a house in the jungle, receiving money and a cardboard box. This box was placed near him, prompting him to immediately alert Free the Bears. This incident underscores the vital role of public vigilance and timely reporting in saving endangered species. Now, while this article does say that public reporting and all these things are important, like citizen science, but also we are not recommending that because of course uh, we anybody who is reporting that or reporting such a crime, because it is a crime, has to be aware of their own safety and their own you know well-being as well. So we are not sort of um, condoning you do that, but in this case at least, the tip did manage to save that one animal from being trafficked, which is, I think, quite commendable on the part of the tourist as well.
Yeah, and I think a lot of things are obviously to be covered. One, obviously, we have to tell our audience why are pangolins actually trafficked. So they're actually
Mhm.
trafficked for the scales and their meat. And there's this wide, what do you say, myth or belief that pangolin scales are good for like curing asthma and other diseases. So in Asia and Africa, they used widely for that. But it has been proven through science that their scales are made of keratin. So what your hair and your fingernails are made of. So it actually doesn't have any scientific value or any medicinal value for what it's actually trafficked. But because the ancient belief system runs that way, they're being trafficked. And the second thing why they get trafficked so easily is because they can be picked up very easily. So they roll into a ball, and that is their defense mechanism against predators. And that helps because their scales are really hard, so the predators can't eat them. But with humans, it's just easy to just scoop them up and take them. So that is what is happening with the pangolins, and them being trafficked so easily. Um, in this case, obviously, it's not who trafficked it and why it was trafficked, but the fact that there was a person alert enough to know if there was trafficking going on, he knew whom to call, and then it was a success story. So that is the part where I think it's most important was what Oops was mentioning. So if you see something wrong, you want to help, make sure you know whom to call and what to do. Like you can't make matters in your own hands. That might not work out great because these traffickers and these poachers have really, really deep connections, and it could be really dangerous.
Yeah, and I'm just sharing image from the article. This is the team of Free the Bear, which basically rescued that pangolin. And as Meghna was saying, the pangolin just rolls into a ball. You could probably see the white parts in this bag that the person is holding. The white parts are the nails of the pangolin. They do have very long nails because they are scratching and elephant sorry ant mounds to eat ants and things like that, or they're sort of digging up the ground, etc. But they can roll into a small ball. They're not very big, they're very small creatures as well. I'll also share image that the article has of a pangolin. So these are the pangolins. They're beautiful looking scales all across its body. And as Meghna said, these scales are very prized in sort of the traditional belief systems, traditional medicine belief systems in sort of East Asia and Southeast Asia. So I think again, it is it is facing immense pressures even after all the groups working towards saving the species and making sure the poaching um, is not as prevalent. It is facing immense pressure, and this sort of pressure can be compared to the heyday of ivory trafficking or ivory trade, because it is quite similar in that regard. You know, where the demand is so high that I mean, every um, corner of those particular countries which have pangolin will have someone who is ready to poach this animal for the right money. And they don't have any natural defenses against humans. So yeah, it's very difficult for them to defend against these kinds of attacks as well. You don't need a lot of tools. Like for an elephant, you would probably need a gun, a tranquilizer, or all these different things. But you don't need a lot of tools to actually pick up a pangolin and start trafficking it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the main thing here is for people to also understand that one, obviously scale. Second, it's also meat. It's meat is considered a delicacy in China and Vietnam, and I don't know why a lot of these delicate, not delicate, but like these uh, weird meats and exotic meats are all always traced back to China somehow. You know, that they
Mhm.
want these luxurious meats, and it makes zero sense. Like you know, in today's day and age where wildlife trafficking and poaching shouldn't exist, it still exists. And it exists at this scale that, you know, this poor animal is the most trafficked animal. It's the same thing like shark meat. I mean, you know, it has no nutritional value, but, you know, everybody wants to have it because it's exotic. And this exotic trade, like not just in meat, but also pet trade, this is what causes a lot of damage to the environment because all of these animals are smuggled, they're trafficked, they're poached. So the biggest thing as a citizen that you can do is to change that demand. So if you're someone who wants to taste that exotic meat, do not be that person. There's enough other non-exotic meat to try. I would have that discussion about meat some other day, but you don't have to demand this fuel. Like, you know, like you don't
Mhm.
have to fuel this demand, sorry. So you
Mhm.
have to make sure that if you see that tractors make more people aware that, okay, you know, why don't we stop this? This will help the environment. There has to be some kind of checks on our demand.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree with that. And I think it is good that people are taking note. There is the organizations that are working towards saving it, which is always good and which is always commendable, I think. There are rehabilitation centers and breeding programs, etc., to actually work there. I was also wondering that if the governments who house like the countries which are home to these pangolins, what impact do you think they, or what responsibility do you think those governments have in enacting laws? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
I
they
think
have
it
a
comes down.
responsibility?
Of course it does. I mean, like, you know, if you see even the Faroese grind, now there's this news from last week where there were three grinds that have happened. It's been illegal, it's been reported. A lot of things comes down to the governments about what they want to deem illegal, what, and they can bind it down to laws then. So there, the government plays a part. So as a human, as a citizen, you can change your demand, you can change your lifestyle, you can change a lot of things. But at the end of the day, the government is the one that actually puts it on paper, makes it enforceable. So if the government is not enforcing, then people will keep doing what they have to do.
Mhm. Yeah. Um.
And I
Yeah.
think that's what with the pangolins is the main thing. Like most places, the laws aren't strong enough. The laws need to be stronger. And we've seen this example with a lot of animal zoos. Like I mean, when the laws are stronger, then poaching goes out of the window. So there was a time when, you know, tigers used to be poached in India. They probably are poached at very very minimal scale, but there's so much anti-poaching drives. There's so much talk about it. There's so much laws on it. There's so much checking on it. There's so much punishment on it that it makes it difficult to traffic or poach them. And it has to be similar for pangolins also then.
Right. And I think the indigenous communities that live alongside, those are the most, I could say, vulnerable. The peoples of those communities are the most vulnerable in terms of getting sucked into this trafficking loop. But indigenous communities can play a very key role in the conservation as well. And we have a perfect story from India's Nagaland about the pangolins and how the indigenous communities are, you know, doing their part. So, Meghnad, if you wanted to cover that.
Yes, read up on that topic. Um, So in Nagaland, India, conservationists are employing community-driven customary laws to protect pangolins. The United Santam Lekumbumji USLP banned hunting in 42 villages in Kipire district, with village councils and customary courts enforcing violations. The strategy addresses national law enforcement challenges as Nagaland's land management is heavily influenced by local customs and awareness of national protection is limited. Historically, pangolin hunting stemmed from cultural beliefs, viewing them as bad omens. Now, hunting primarily supplies local demand for meat and scales for ornaments. Scales also fuel international trade for traditional medicine, lacking scientific proof. Kipiri's border with Myanmar makes it a potential transit hub for illegal wildlife trade. Empowering local communities through their own legal frameworks is thus vital for effective animal conservation, where traditional enforcement struggles. And I think the amazing part about this is that they're not waiting for like the government of India to actually take some steps, take some laws. They're just at the community level taking those steps and laws. They understand how close their land is to the border, how easily it can be trafficked. They understand that they're not, pangolins are not bad omens anymore, and they're not required for like the meat or ornaments or for medicinal uses. So that change must have come over time, and for like people who are culturally stuck or culturally like bonded to an animal, it's actually very different to change those cultural beliefs. But here we are in a remote state in India where the locals are taking matters into their hands and making sure that these animals can be saved. How amazing is that?
Yeah, I think we have managed to cover, if we look back in our episode, um library as well, we have covered a number of these kinds of stories where indigenous communities have played a very key role in conservation and often showing the way to the governments that this is how it should be done. And I think all of these indigenous communities around the world have this intimate knowledge about nature and the workings of nature, that that you can only get if you are living as close to the natural world as they are. So I think the communities are slowly realizing the importance and the key role that they have, and the key opportunity that they have as well. A lot of these stories we have covered from South America, and now from India as well. So I think this is, as Meghna said, very very much commendable, and I think these are the peoples that can start that change, because the demand will be there from the urban centers of the world, and people living in the urban areas. I think it's very difficult for us to convince people. We will try anyway. We will try anyway, but uh, it's very difficult for anybody to convince the urbanized people, because there's so much to do and so much going on in the lives, that people often have maybe 10 minutes to think about the wildlife and the impacts that they're having. And yeah, I think the communities are playing a key role in bridging that gap. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think we actually also need to do a shout out to the Wildlife Trust of India because they played a big part in changing the cultural beliefs and the way people think. So what they've told people is that so a lot of people in this community, in the Santam community, they depend heavily on wood, bamboo, and forest produce for their work. And how WTI changed that belief about pangolins is that they explain how pangolins help control termite populations by consuming millions of them over their lifetime. And if the pangolins reduced, that means that they would have to use more pesticide, which means it was more harmful to humans. And so they gave them the entire picture of how pangolins actually help the farmers, help the locals, and they eat the insects, they eat the termites. So they're very useful in agriculture. They're very useful for everything that the locals need. And this is how the locals also started understanding that they're not bad omens, they're actually very useful to them and that they need to protect. So that change has happened over time and with a lot of people creating and spreading that awareness. And that is exactly what we're also trying to do with this show, that we want more and more people to be talking about things like this, so there's like more and more change in people's perception.
Yeah, absolutely. We hope that the 10 minutes or 5 minutes people have in their day to think about these sorts of things and think about, after all they've done during the day, and all the worldly worries that they have, we can fit into that 10 minutes and 15 minutes that people have, and bring these topics front of mind. So again, commendable job by the local communities, the Naga communities, and we will sort of follow these kinds of stories, and this story also in particular, and sort of update you if there are any updates there. Mm.
Yep.
Um,
Let's move on to the next groups.
yes. This is a story from Mongabe again. Uh, Trump called trophy hunting a horror show, but permitted 300 plus elephant trophy imports in 2025. More than 300 elephant trophy import permits were issued in 2025 during Donald Trump's second presidency, making the highest number ever issued under his administration. This figure, indicating up to 300 elephants killed, represents a 154% increase over permits issued in his entire first term. Despite elephants being listed as threatened under US Endangered Species Act, requiring permits, the Trump administration appears to be facilitating imports. Safari Club International is actively petitioning to dilute protections for elephants to ease trophy imports. Nearly two-thirds of these trophies originated from Botswana, which resumed elephant hunting in 2018. This surge contrasts with Trump's earlier horror show comment about trophy hunting, though his administration previously convened a pro hunting board. African savanna elephants are endangered species with their populations drastically reduced. Again, this is, I think, very typical of the administration, the current administration in the US as well. They will say something, and 2 days later, it would be something different. Um,
And I think,
so,
especially when it comes to wildlife and the environment, um, this administration doesn't care at all. They might care
hmm.
about a lot of other things, but not about.
Yes, I think that is quite true. I will show some images, and I think in this case, more than any other, the picture will tell is worth 1,000 words. I'll share some images from the article. Here you can see two maybe sub-adult and teenage elephants sort of bonding, and the elephants are very intelligent creatures as well. They are some early research have found that they have names like we humans do for ourselves, and they would respond to their names being called and played back over a speaker and things like that. So these are elephants bonding. But if we look at this image, then you can see it's an elephant head that has been taxidermied and put as a show in this particular um, uh, you know museum in New York, which is absolutely devastating to see. Such a magnificent creature being put on to show like that, and a creature that is and an animal that is so severely endangered. So I think the both the parties, the country allowing these hunts and the country facilitating the imports of these trophies, both the parties are equally to blame here as well. This again is a
Yeah,
sort of
absolutely. I
herd of
mean,
elephants.
I just feel like one, I think we discussed this earlier as well. Like, I don't understand the goal. I don't understand trophy hunting. I don't understand the need. I don't understand any bit of it. Like, I mean, the only kind of hunting I ever understand is where it's actually for sustenance, and you do it only because there are no other ways of sustenance. So tribes, remote places, remote people, when they do, they actually care for the animal, they respect the animal, and they hunt only because they have to sustain themselves. But in trophy hunting, it's just a matter of pride, it's a matter of ego, it's a matter of, oh, I killed this big animal with my small gun. And
Mm.
yeah, and then you take back this, this head on a plug, and you're like, oh my god, look at that, I killed this animal. It's the worst and the most stupid thing I think we come up with as humans. I mean, all of this hobby sports at the cost of lives of some endangered animal it doesn't makes no sense. And honestly, it's very hard to take Trump seriously. Like if you would call it a horror show and then still give permits. So he's not okay with the hunting part, but is okay with the just the heads being brought back.
Mm. Not only the heads, I wanted to show a couple of more images as well, which will portray how horrific this whole thing is. So this is an image again of the elephant herds in Botswana. So it says Botswana has a stable population of elephants overall, but recent surveys show their numbers are decreasing in areas where hunting is permitted. That is like, yeah, it's a rhetoric question almost, and that is like expected if you give permits. So look at this. Like, why would somebody need this? And like, again, I would not want to have this in my home. This looks like a horrific sort of a thing to have, like a taxidermied elephant feet tables. So this is Jackson County Fairgrounds in Iowa. I wouldn't want to, have this in my home. Looks horrible, and it shouldn't belong in a home. Like elephant foot tables and coffee tables and things like that. Again, this is an elephant foot waste basket, which was confiscated actually. Taxidermied heads and feet are common trophies that hunters bring back to the US. So again, not something anybody would. I think people will be repulsed by having something like this if you were like throw your waste in this particular thing.
I think the
Um,
hunters need to throw themselves in that waste basket,
um,
and that's
you
the
know,
Trump post.
this is a Trump post in 2017. Big game trophy decision will be announced next week, but will be very hard pressed to change my mind that this is a horror show in any way helps conservation of elephants or any other animal. I think this is the correct sentiment, but again, their actions speak louder than words. This is an elephant skin boot sold in Reno, Nevada. Again, I don't know why you would want this or want an elephant skin boot, but like there are leather options available from the animals we eat and farm, so why not do that? But I don't know, these feet tables and the head on a mounted on a wall, yeah, it just seems so horrible and horrifying to me. I would not want to have this in my home at all in any
Yeah,
measure.
and I think, I mean, in this day and age, why would you want something like that? It's not great for you. It's not great for the environment. It's not great for anyone. I mean, you
Mm,
hunt, you get their feet and head back. How do you feel if someone did that with you? I mean, like,
mm,
oh, this person's head looks quite beautiful. Let me kill him, like chop his head and then put it on like a plaque in my room. And we would call that person a psycho, a serial killer. I don't know what else we would call that person for having that kind of fetish and fantasy. But when it comes to animals, somehow we're like, oh wow, it looks so beautiful to have this head on a wall. How is it that we're okay with something like that? I mean, imagine if actually people started taxiderming human faces and put them on
mm,
the walls. So it's similar. It's similar. I mean, there's nothing to boast about it. There's nothing great about keeping it there. There's nothing great about killing an animal that can actually maul you. It can maul you. It can rip you. It can drag you across the ground. But it's just because you have a rifle or a gun. You're sitting in a vehicle far away. You're sitting in a comfortable vehicle that it can't come and attack you. That's why you get all this, confidence push that yeah, you can kill this big animal and then bring its head back. Um, ways that we can actually curb this is by telling people that go on one-on-one combat. If you're able to kill the elephant, then take the uh, head and go with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
no,
the elephant
that
gets
is
to keep
something
hearing.
that is something people I don't know if people will be open to uh, that if that came to that. So nobody would be able to kill those elephants. I think the other thing also is like um commission an artist to actually build that. If you want to that head in your home, or that elephant, that horrible elephant feet table, coffee table in your home, commission an artist to recreate that. It is possible. You don't have to kill the real thing to get that thing in your home. It is possible to for an artist to recreate that exactly. Like, you wouldn't be able to tell realistically. It is possible for an artist to do that, and commission an artist, and keep that in your home if you are so hell bent on having something like that in your home.
That's actually a really, really good idea because, like, there are so many artists who actually do need projects and they
Hmm.
do need the money, and they can come up with very different materials to use.
Correct. Correct. And I think this is a very prevalent thing in India, where we build idols with in elephants heads and things like that. And all our deities that we build, um, and it's often very accurate. Like, you won't be able to tell. We build animals, all kinds of animals, which are basically the chariots of particular deities. We built lions, owls, mice, and all these different things. So, it is possible to build it, and not only in India, like across the world, there are artists who are able to achieve that level of realism very easily. It's a common thing that artists do. So it's not even that difficult for an artist or a sculpture expert to do that. So yeah, I think that's do that if you wish to have that in your apartment, or not apartment, but home or house or something like that. But yeah, I think killing that and bringing it all the way, it's like, I don't even know how one does that. Bring a freshly cut head, preserve it, and bring it all the way from Africa to the US. But yeah, people are apparently doing that. Mm.
Yeah, that is the sad part. I mean, I honestly think this is the best solution. There are two solutions. Obviously, one to be more strict about trophy hunting and the legality around it, so better laws to enforce. And the second is obviously what Oops has mentioned to if you really, really want something like that in your house, then commission it to an artist. And you could also like get different things done, like more colorful elephant or a more colorful table or more colorful something. You could also make it very eco-friendly. There are so many options, and that is a better way to go about than what is happening right now.
True, true. Cool. You want to cover the next story there, Meghna?
Yeah, I think we've had a lot to say about elephants, and elephants are amazing creatures. If you ever come across them, you would know what a privilege it is to be in front of an elephant. But moving on to the next story, it's actually like a happier version of this. It says radio and satellite alerts help Zambian farmers live with dangerous wildlife. In Zambia's eastern province, a community radio station, Chikaya FM, is tackling the critical issue of human wildlife conflict. Villagers live in a frontier conservation area bordering Malawi, frequently facing dangerous encounters with wild animals. Recent concerns center on hyenas, which officials report have tragically killed four children. The twice weekly radio program, sponsored by the International Fund for Animal Welfare (IFAW) and featuring officials from Zambia's Department of National Parks and Wildlife, provides essential advice to promote coexistence. Broadcasting from Lundazi, the show helps serve around 500,000 people across three farming districts. Presenters and DNPW rangers like Matthews Mumbi advise listeners to avoid going out at night to prevent accidental harm. The initiative aims to mitigate conflicts as animals, including elephants, traverse farmlands and communities to reach national parks. And I think this is a great way because at least there are alerts. There are ways that you can tell people not to go out. There are ways that people can be warned about the elephants or the hyenas or any other wild animals coming towards that side. So that's a great initiative, and I think that is the only way that you can actually promote coexistence. A lot of animals are nocturnal. A lot of animals' movements are more towards the night, especially. All of the big cats. So if the movement can be restricted at that time, if there is more news about which animal is coming from where, then you can be more prepared. So all in all, I think a very great initiative on the in Zambia right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think such um, similar approaches has been tried in other areas with human animal conflict as well. I particularly remember an instance from South India where SMS messaging was along with the central server was used to alert people of such human animal conflict zones, and if an elephant was coming into their patch of forest or woods. So I think this is very important, and I love these kinds of solutions where you are preempting the people and helping people have the tools to actually deal with that conflict rather than inciting people to exercise violence. You are um, giving them the tools and the knowledge that avoid these areas, avoid going out at night. I think that is the way to deal with um, human animal conflict. We just avoid each other. That's a good way, I think. um there are certain cases where that avoidance is not enough, and there are exceptions to the rule. But I think a rule of thumb is just avoiding getting into each other's paths, even if that does mean that you're delayed by 15 minutes here or half an hour there. That I think that sort of compassion is required in that situation. But other than that, I think it's easily achievable, and especially through these community efforts, the community radio. And I think this is a theme that is emerging across, and we covered the community and the indigenous community story this episode as well. But this is a theme that is emerging, that people are realizing and waking up to this fact that it is important uh, to conserve these animals, and we cannot just willy nilly go and start killing them. So it is this theme that is emerging. It is, I think, very commendable overall. um,
Yeah,
Community efforts.
absolutely. I think communities need to be willing when it comes to coexistence, because if the communities are not willing, then there is no way that coexistence will work out, even if there are other organizations that are working towards creating awareness. Until that awareness doesn't actually seep into the community's heart and they actually feel for animals, it would not change. So there are places across the world that there is a lot of anger, for the wildlife that come and attack. The families, and it's always very different. I mean, as city folks, it's very hard to imagine what people bordering wildlife parks or national parks actually live. So they obviously have the most tolerance and they have the most capability of coexisting. But this is the great effort on the community's part, that the community is willing to actually coexist with all the wildlife. So that is a beautiful story. Um, but yeah, I mean, we love these kind of happy stories. They're short and sweet, and we hope there are more stories like this all the time from different communities. But we can probably move on to the next topic, right? Oops.
Yeah. So this I'll just do a short one. Um, this is about belugas, where it says belugas join a rare animal kingdom club. They can recognize themselves in a mirror. So this is a story from the National Geographic, and it says beluga whales have demonstrated remarkable self awareness, joining an elite group of animals capable of mirror self recognition. A recent study published in PLOS ONE reveals that belugas, known for their distinctive appearance, can identify themselves in mirrors. Researchers observed them using mirrors to examine their bodies, perform barrel rolls, and even explore their own mouths. This finding positions belugas alongside species like great apes, magpies, and cleaner wrasse fish, challenging the notion that such cognitive abilities are exclusively human. Lead author Diana Reese notes that list of human unique behaviors is shrinking as more animals prove capable of them. This capacity for mirror self recognition is generally associated with highly social and empathetic species, suggesting complex cognitive processes in beluga whales. This is great. Nice story. We will again. This is a scientific story, so we wouldn't be able to comment a lot on that, but we will definitely try and the um, get the scientists on our show if they are willing, and get some more insights about this. And for
Yeah,
people who
and I think that is amazing because recognizing yourself is actually one of the things that a lot of wild animals struggle with. So there is a lot of studies, a lot of experiments that have been done where it takes a long time for animals to understand what it means that they're looking at themselves in the mirror. It's not natural for them. It wasn't natural for us as well, but we are now very used to it. But even your dogs or puppies, it takes time for them to understand that it's them that they're looking at and not another dog. That self recognition or that self awareness comes after a long time. And belugas and whales in general are known to being extremely intelligent. The kind of decisions they take, the kind of awareness they have. So I'm actually not surprised that they can recognize themselves in the mirror. Like all whales are crazy amazing.
Yeah, I will play some videos here where the belugas are seen doing like barrel rolls and things like that. So I'll just see why the video is not playing. Yeah, so yeah, the belugas are seen doing barrel rolls here in this video, which is amazing. And for people who don't remember, we have been covering beluga whales for some times now, regarding to the Canadian SeaWorld closure, and how those beluga whales fate are still undecided. So we'll keep following that, but this just goes on to show, as Meghna said, um, how intelligent they are and how close to human intelligence they are. Here a beluga is seen sort of playing with a toy and manipulating sort of a toy in front of the mirror. Again, this presumably is a two-way mirror where uh, we can see them but they can't see us observing, so which is also a great way to sort of observe these animals as well. And I think there's a third video where the whale, the beluga whale, is basically blowing bubbles in front of that mirror, so examining their mouths, blowing bubbles and things like that. So um that's a great finding. We'll, of course, as I said, like, we'll try and get the scientist on the show um to get some more insight about this, because this seems like an important discovery overall. So
So
yeah.
tell me this, I mean, what these belugas are they like captive or are they being used only for the study or where have they been studied? Is it like an ethical study where it doesn't actually use captive belugas or were they already captive so they're being used for the study?
I think these kinds of studies I'll try to find the you know yes, this is this is a set of four captive belugas at the New York Aquarium of Wildlife Conservation Society. Um, so yeah, I think these are captive, but these kinds of studies, unfortunately, um, cannot be done in a natural setting, or like a uncontrollable setting, because in a scientific study, one of the things you do need is a control sample to sort of eliminate any uh, variations in your data collection. So um, yeah, unfortunately, these kinds of studies have to be done in a captive environment. So yeah, but yeah, as the question to answer the answer to your question is, this is a uh,
Yeah,
captive
I feel like
animal.
sometimes it's very hard, like because you want to do these kind of experiments, but you don't want to, hear that they're captive animals. Obviously, it's nice for belugas to have that fun, but belugas definitely do belong in the wild. We've had that discussion even with the marine land and the entire story of them being transported and not being sent to the sanctuary and all of that. So it's a great study. It's a great way to know, but if there were better ways of actually studying belugas, I think the ones that are already captive and cannot be released, there's not much you can do. But I hope they're not bringing in more and more belugas just to research.
No, that is definitely the hope. Yeah, yeah, it'll be very, I think, time consuming and difficult for um to recreate this, essentially, because do you remember like how we had a researcher, the elephant researcher, and she said that this study wouldn't have been able to be replicated in a wild environment. So I think that's the challenge there. But definitely, I think scientists would be working tirelessly to see if this can be replicated in the wild, which I think is a dream for scientists as well. Like, to be able to be replicated, a wild animal basically showing these kinds of behaviors is sort of the dream for those scientists as well, I feel like. But yeah, a great nifty piece of study. We'll try to get the scientist and learn more about the study. But yeah, that was what we had to say about this piece of news.
Yep, and I think following Obsessed, I'm going to do another short story.
Mhm.
It says tracking Lucero. Scientists follow a rare eastern Pacific leatherback sea turtle. Fewer than 1,000 critically endangered eastern Pacific leatherback sea turtles remain. Scientists recently tagged the first nesting leatherback named Lucero in Ecuador, the southern limit of their nesting range. Estimated at 25 to 40 years old, Lucero's satellite tag would transfer data on her migration and feeding patterns, crucial for informing conservation policies. Researchers from Foundation Rain Alert and marine conservation biologist Callie Wielanter carefully attached the tag to Lucero's shell while she was in a trance-like state, laying eggs on a remote beach. The Eastern Pacific subpopulation has plummeted by 98% in recent decades, primarily due to entanglement in fishing nets as a bycatch. This tagging effort aims to provide vital insights into the serious movements, helping to protect the severely threatened species and mitigate threats like bycatch by understanding their oceanic roots. Uh, and I think this, like again, it's a different study, it's a different animal, but I think these studies are what will help save these animals. With turtles, we know that when they like hatch, when they lay eggs, it's a 1 in 1,000 chance of turtles usually that make it to adulthood, and there are different species of turtles that are endangered at different levels. And this eastern Pacific leatherback sea turtle is critically endangered and has 1,000 left. So hopefully the way that the data is transmitted will help. And also we have spoken a lot about fishing nets, trolling nets, and the bycatch that comes through. There needs to be more traditional ways of catching. There need to be better ways of these nets so that there's not much of bycatch, because the bycatch is actually the bigger problem than the fishing itself, because the fishing, it's like 1 kg, 2 kgs, and the bycatch would be like 5 or 10 kgs. That is where the problem comes in, especially for turtles that are critically endangered and would lay eggs and still have a 1 in 1,000 chance.
Hmm. Yeah, I think this is one of those things. Like, I don't know, like maybe I feel like, and Meghna, you touched on this when we were talking about the pangolin, but maybe like we have, you know limited our, because I don't know any of these exotic meats or exotic things that we eat have um, especially greater benefit or health benefit compared to the farmed animals that we generally consume. And there are numerous farmed animals that we do farm and consume. There's numerous of them. Maybe it could be time that we sort of limit ourselves to only the animals that we farm, except fish, because fish has to be sort of caught. Very difficult to farm some of the more seafaring fish, but rest of it we just keep it to the species that we can farm. If we can farm turtles, then let's eat turtles, but if we can't, then let's not. I feel like that should be the bar, um
Yeah, I
right
think
now.
I actually think that a lot of prawns also have gone that way.
Uh-huh.
Prawns are one of the island's biggest bycatch. They have around like a 1 to, I think a 1 kg prawn has 9 kg bycatch, which makes prawns very unsustainable. But there are prawn fisheries across a lot of places now, and it's pretty much like how you do agriculture. You farm the prawns, and those prawns are sustainable because you're actually growing them in an environment, very controlled environment. There's no bycatch, so that is still okay to consume. So similarly, if there is a way for the saltwater fish to also grow similarly like the prawns, and you avoid bycatch, and if you really have to fish in ocean, then you use those traditional methods which do not affect or what do you say, harm other animals, then that's great, because fishing is a very very old tradition. But fishing was a very sustainable tradition in the sense that you would go fish only when you needed it. But now, because people from far remote places also want to, there's like this huge industrial fishing, which is the main issue. So there are two ways that to solve this problem. One, obviously, if they can actually be found, and secondly, if there is a better way to move away from trolling and the bigger industrial fishing to a smaller community fishing. Back to that era.
Yeah, and I think we have discussed this multiple times, how, and we have covered some stories about traditional fishing methods and things like that. So, traditional fishing methods are, very, very in tune with nature. So, yeah, trolling. I think there are we are one of the we are strongly against trolling, and um, there are a few organizations that I personally support. We jointly support that their mission, support their mission, that are actively trying to get rid of trolling altogether. I think fishing, sort of farming and building up fisheries is the way to go, and is the future. There are some species that we will miss out on, like maybe the Pacific tuna and things like that, one that comes to mind. But I think we must give them a chance to recover. Uh, and at the rate we are, you know, catching them, they will go extinct, but they will take, because we are fishing them in such industrial levels, they will cause the extinction of five other species because they are being caught as bycatch. And these leatherback turtles, they're so beautiful. um, like
Yeah, and I think the main important part is that any animal that you remove from the system, it would cause a unprecedented damage. So, like turtles feed on algae, jellyfish, they have their own part in the marine ecosystem. And
Mhm,
yes, also just sharing a photo, they are huge, beautiful turtles. That is a leatherback turtle,
mhm,
and you don't really see them a lot also because they're not a very they're endangered and critically endangered. So, like the green sea turtles, or that you would actually come across, you don't come across leatherback turtles, even if you die, they go into space. So, it's more important to actually change these fishing practices and more studies like this that could help save these turtles.
mm. I mean, there are, as you read in the article, there are like less than 1,000 of them remaining. So if it would be like finding a needle in a haystack in the vast ocean. But yeah, I think it's a great initiative that these are being studied extensively. But again, the main culprit here is the bycatch and the trawling and the industrial fishing. And we as a society must find a way to get rid of that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. Okay, then moving on, what do we have next on restrooms?
um yeah, let me go to the next one. I think this one is good, where endangered Persian leopards persist across borders despite hunters and landmines. The critically endangered Persian leopard population numbers fewer than 1,100 in the wild, with 80% concentrated in Iran. Their decline is primarily driven by retaliatory killings from local communities responding to livestock predation alongside accidental trapping. A recent and remarkable sighting occurred in Georgia's Algety National Park, where a three-legged male Persian leopard named Aren was captured on CCTV footage. This was only the third recorded sighting of the subspecies in Georgia in 2 decades. Astounding conservationists like Bejan um, Lorky Panidze, I don't know, probably spelled it, pronounced it wrong, but Bejan, I would call him or her or them, of NACRES, and Vesa of WWS Caucasus. The footage, initially from a camera monitoring a red deer breeding enclosure, quickly circulated, highlighting the species' precarious existence and the importance of every individual. Aaron's discovery underscores the urgent need for enhanced conservation efforts for these rare big cats. Again, big cats are one of my favorite things to photograph. I haven't photographed or seen a Persian leopard in the wild, but again, beautiful creatures. There are subspecies, so different from the African leopard and the Indian leopard. And also, I think the Siberian leopard, which is the Amur leopard as well. So this is another subspecies of the leopard species. Looks very similar, but again, a different species altogether. Um, so yeah, I
Yeah,
think this is also a precursor, or sort of I guess one of the things that we have been focusing on in the past few months, where what are our roles and responsibilities or duties towards these animals in times of conflict, in times of human conflict. Um, so I think there's a mention of landmines here. So yeah, that is what we are um, focusing on here as well. Yeah.
I think there's also one more thing that obviously, how we've done other community stories where the community is actually willing to change and willing to coexist. That kind of awareness is probably missing here. So, there are obviously some conservationists working in the field, and there's some conservationists working to capture this footage. But there has to be more than this, and there has to be more about talking with locals and talking with people who live in these areas to actually live, let these beautiful Persian leopards live. And, maybe there could be better ways of subsidizing, or not subsidizing, but rewarding the farmers who lose their livestock to such kind of predation. So there has to be a better way from the government side in terms of how they can have a system to compensate people who lose their livestock to leopards, and at the same time have better coexistence strategies so that the leopards can also live with the
Mm.
humans.
Yeah, this is the footage of the leopard that was being talked about. Not footage, but an image. RN. This is captured by a camera trap in Armenia, and these leopards have huge ranges as well. So um, so this map sort of shows Aaron's journey north from Armenia into Georgia. So this is a map of South Caucasus, and here you can see in starting in Azerbaijan in February 2019 to December 2022, and then going to another state sanctuary. So look at how far it's traveling, and then near then in Armenia, from Azerbaijan to Armenia to Georgia. So yeah, it has traveled a huge amount of distance. So these big cats, especially like the cats that live in the mountain, Persian leopards in this particular region, and then there's the Siberian tiger and the Siberian leopards in Russia and Siberia. These any big cats for the matter of fact, they travel such vast distances, and they're solitary animals. They have such huge territories, that it is also important that we sort of not only protect these fragmented areas, but also the entire territory, and give them pathways to navigate around.
Absolutely. And the good part about these countries, at least, especially these countries which are surrounding Europe and part of Europe joining Europe, is that the borders are very straight. So there's a lot of movement that can happen across the borders, which is very very essential for. These cats, especially these remote Persian rivers. So this is great that they get that movement at least, and that movement has been recorded. It's just a matter of, I think, creating the kind of awareness of coexistence, and at the same time having like better laws for the protection and better compensation.
Mm, mm. Um, so this is a good sign that this particular leopard, and for people who did not notice, I certainly did not, but the cat only has three legs. This leg is not, in the snow, but this leg is actually not there at all.
Yeah,
So
but it said that in the summary.
it
It's written
said that in
there.
the summary as well.
Yeah.
So there's another image here where Aaron is shown hunting, and on the camera trap, uh, using his disability adapted hunting method of launching at prey from the mouth of a cave. So you can see the prey here on the left, and Aaron is launching at the prey from the mouth of a cave. So it's great to see that Aaron has adapted to his disability. So that also goes on to show that how resilient nature is, if given the space. So I think a great piece of story overall.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest things with animals, I feel, is when they have disabilities, it's only when they absolutely cannot move, they cannot feed themselves, they cannot help themselves, is when they die. But if there was even a slight chance of them surviving, of them being able to, make it, then they would not give up. And that is something that I think we really, really need to learn from animals, because we actually tend to give up. We tend to take the easy route. We actually look down on disability, and we actually think that if we're disabled at some point in our lives, then our life is done. But when we see animals, I mean, they are so resilient and they're so strong. That's like a big, big, big thing to take away. It's not directly related to the story, but I think it's something that we really need to learn from them.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. Um, cool. That was a nice and positive story there. But obviously, like the conservation side of things, it's good to know that people are working there, but all the governments need stricter policies around compensation, as Meghna mentioned, if livestock is being harmed, and sort of general coexistence with these magnificent animals. Um, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay.
Mm.
Moving on to the next topic. Um, so, a record number of dams have been dismantled in Europe in an effort to help wildlife thrive. Europe witnessed a record 602 river barriers, including dams, weirs, and culverts, dismantled last year, marking an 11% increase from the previous year. The significant effort reconnected 2,324 miles of rivers, bringing the EU closer to its ambitious goal of restoring 15,500 miles to their natural state by 2030. The movement aims to help native wildlife thrive by allowing waterways to resume their natural course and facilitate fish migration. Sweden leads Europe with 173 barrier removals, including four small dams recently taken out by rewilding Sweden in Windel River tributaries. Iceland also removed its first dam on the river Melsa, which had become derelict but still blocked fish. This trend reflects a global shift from historically viewing rivers solely as economic engines towards recognizing their ecological importance and restoring their health. And this is obviously a really, really positive story. And this is a great story in the sense that people are recognizing how human made dams change the way that the fish would migrate and the fish would survive and how the fish would thrive. So this is a way of going back to nature, going back to nature. I think it's a great initiative that Europe is taking, and the fact that they have this whole ambitious goal of restoring 15,500 miles to their natural state by 2030. That just feels so good to hear, because I don't think any other place across the world is trying to do this or even close to doing this.
No, absolutely. Agreed. But I think also, like, um to be the devil's advocate here, Europe has the economic capability and the, I don't know, the developed nations have that capability to actually invest, like this in conservation, or in like ripping out the past and etc. But a lot of developing nations and a lot of countries might not have um that that capability to do so, because this would take a lot of effort and a lot of manpower and lot of other things, a lot of money, to be exact, to be, you know speak the bottom line, to actually, you know achieve. um
Yeah, no, that I absolutely agree. Obviously, countries that are developed have the kind of resources, have the kind of motivation, and have that goal space, let's say, to actually
mm,
do such kind of things. That is there. But then for countries that are already developed and actually taking these initiatives in itself is great. thing, because they can choose not to, but they're choosing to do that, and they're choosing to actually have ambitious goals and actually bringing the rivers, and then they have their own ways of what would you say, by removing these barriers, some other ways of surviving with the entire, how the dams would stop the rivers, and they would have like probably other type of pipelines, and also they're changing that entire thing just so that the fish can thrive, and when the fish thrive, then the entire ecosystem thrives. So that is a great way that there are countries across the world, even if they're developed, they're actually making that initiative, and it's actually developed nations that can do such kind of things. They have the money, they have the resources, they have the time, so they are the ones who can actually give back to the environment more. And you compare Europe with US, you see what is happening. So
Hmm.
that's so it's just not the developed tag that helps. It's also the motivation and the need, and the want to do such kind of things.
No. I think that's quite true as well. You have to, and I think these countries being developed have the opportunity to show the way to the rest of the world and as well. But oftentimes, and as we have covered in our stories as well, oftentimes it is the case that more of the developing nations are showing the way. We have covered multiple stories from Africa, South America, and Southeast Asia, East Asia, and all these other places where we have seen that a lot of times the developing nations are showing the way how conservation is done. But focusing on this particular topic, I think rewilding is a very important because river is sort of the backbone of modern civilization, modern society. You would always settle down as humans historically as well. Humans would always settle down near a river. It's a giver of fresh water and things like that, which is necessary and essential not only for our survival but for our modern society to function as a whole. So I think river rewilding is something that each and every country should be looking at, especially these developed nations, and because I think a lot of the developing nations have that added problem of first cleaning up the rivers, then the, probably they would be able to focus on more long-term goals like rewilding. Um,
Absolutely true. I just saw a really viral reel on Instagram where it showed really beautiful flowing rivers, and then the headline or the tagline said, "Rivers when they're not worshipped." So like when they're not worshipped, the rivers are like flowing clean, they're beautiful, and they're pristine. And the rivers that are actually worshipped are full of garbage, and they need to be cleaned. So there is obviously that cultural belief and things also that need to change. But at the same time, developing nations also need to go slowly on their environment goals, which I think a lot of developing nations are doing in their own ways through community efforts and different kinds of efforts. There are always great stories coming out, but for this one, we really need to applaud Europe for doing this, and the fact that they really care about the environment. It's nice that there are these changes, because that is what we need in 2026. We need more awareness that we need to give back to the environment and keep taking from it.
True, true. Yeah, beautiful story overall as well. Um, there is a story that comes again um, in the AI space. This is coming from US. San Francisco turns to AI to save whales from ship strikes as deaths soar. San Francisco has launched an AI powered detection network, Whale Spotter, to combat a surge of in gray whale deaths caused by ship strikes in the bay. Climate change is driving starving gray whales into the area, leading to an alarming increase in fatalities. 21 dead whales were found last year, a 25-year high, with 40% attributed to vessel collisions. Whale spotter uses around the clock scanning for whale blows and heat signatures up to 2 nautical miles away, alerting ferries and cargo ships to slow down or reroute, allowing mariners to adjust courses in advance. Furthermore, data from Whale Spotter will track whale camping spots, enabling long term route adjustments during whale season to completely avoid these critical areas, protecting vulnerable marine mammals. Again, a very good use of AI. You know, I really like these kinds of uses of AI, where this couldn't have been done by a team of humans, or would have taken a very, very big team of humans and um, a lot of money to achieve the same
Yeah,
thing.
and like probably like a dedicated round the clock patrolling, it would have been very different. And obviously, we do know that if the grey whales are actually being driven into the area, that is because they're starving, which means that this is actually like a wake up call that the fishing there is unsustainable. There's like too much fishing going on, which is why the grey whales are starving and they're going into areas that they're not supposed to be going into. But at the same time, it's great that there is this AI mechanism that is using round the clock scanning and it is alerting, because this is also not just a problem here, it's a problem all across the world. And I think we've spoken about this, I think, with the humpback whales as well in a lot of areas
Mhm.
across the world when humpback whales go into the warmer waters to actually give birth and stay with the juveniles. There are areas where there are ferries and there are collisions. So this kind of technology can be extended to different places across the world, and this would actually help with the ferries, the speeds, everything across, and
Mm.
help save more and more whales, because like a collision is something that can be avoided through this method, and it should be avoided.
I'm just on this website for whale spotter. It says 250,000 plus whales detected, or 250,000. Um, 2020 deployed globally, and 417,000 hours, or 417,000 hours at sea, 8 lakh nautical miles protected, or 800,000 nautical miles protected. So again, these are the numbers by them. So take it as it is, with a grain of salt, obviously, because they definitely are a for-profit company, and they would obviously be promoting these things, their numbers. But I feel like I would like to see this technology like open sourced, and for different developing nations to be able to adopt. Like I don't think, being based out of San Francisco, you know, it is easy to get tap into the funding, um, you know, that uh, yeah, I guess San Francisco and California generally has, being the Silicon Valley and being close to the Silicon Valley and all these things. So they have the technical expertise and the technical people that there, but also access to huge amounts of funding, especially in the AI space nowadays. So I think,
But
yeah.
it's all these other countries that have whale watching tours and that get a lot of tourism and income through these whale tours and whale visits and whale swimming. They definitely would have the funding to be able to afford something like this. So they should definitely look into something like this and use it for their spaces, because their livelihood does depend. A couple of months a year, a lot of these countries depend on the whales and whales passing by.
Yeah, that could be the possibility. I'm maybe that is the case, and the governments will have, but the interest, certainly it is easier for governments to pick up if there is no money involved. It's certainly easier to pick up a free thing where you don't have any money involved, and it's much easier to convince the people, the stakeholders, and the sort of ministers involved. Okay, this is a free thing. It's a win-win situation and things like that. Again, I would have liked to see it being free and open source, this piece of software and technology, but again, it's doing good for the whales. Now, we have an interesting discussion question here as well, where it says, does AI mitigate human impact on whales or simply shift focus from deeper climate change solution? And I think that is an important question to ask here, because this is basically putting a band-aid, sort of in a way where we are carrying on with our activities, but we're just rerouting, or being aware of um, the the whales. And you said this, like, this is because the fish is being depleted, the fish stocks are being depleted. That's why they're coming into this bay in the first place. So yeah, I think there is an important question there as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is the problem with a lot of things we do. The solutions are great, but the solutions are only a package. So it's mitigating the conflict part, but it is not solving the root cause. The root cause here
Mm,
is that the great whales are starving, which means that they're starving because what they feed there are being
mm,
removed at an alarming speed. And that is why it is very important to look into what is being caught, what is being uh, fished and what is being overfished. And we've had this discussion before also with even something like krill in the Antarctic, where krill are being overfished, and if they're overfished, then that leads to the entire Antarctic system collapsing. And it's similar with the whales across. So if they don't have enough food, then they're going to suffer, and then they're going to migrate, and they're going to have patterns that are not longer. So where AI is great, but AI should not be the end goal or the end
mm,
solution. The problem and the root cause needs to actually be addressed.
true. Cool. I think that's all we had to say about this topic, this particular topic. Um, why don't we move on to the next one?
Yeah. So the next one is about the orangutans, and I think we've spoken about this a lot of times. But still, this is one we want news. It says, should we leave them to die? The battle over how to save orangutans from the curse of palm oil. New settlers clearing forest habitats in Borneo are pushing apes, specifically orangutans, into dangerous conflict with humans. The article highlights the plight of farmers like Edi Ramli and his family in Kalimantan, Indonesia. Signs of orangutan presence like half-eaten bananas and ribbed bark became an ominous reality for Edi when he encountered a large adult male orangutan near his farm. This encounter, occurring as shooting season pushed the animals closer to human settlements, underscores the escalating tension. Farmers, depending on their land for survival, face direct threats from these powerful creatures whose natural habitat is being destroyed. The summary emphasizes that simply relocating the apes is unlikely to solve the complex issue, which stems from widespread deforestation and human encroachment. This escalating conflict jeopardizes both human livelihoods and ape conservation efforts. And I think we've spoken about this in detail how even though a lot of deforestation has happened. There's been a lot of talks. There's been that very moving picture of the single orangutan on a single tree in the middle of the forest where everything's been uprooted. We still don't change. Indonesia is still giving permits. It's still giving like huge areas of land to cut down palm oil. And we've spoken about this in previous episodes. We've shown the kind of area, like the habitat and the amount of destruction it would cause if that area was out for palm oil. But still, that doesn't reduce. And what's happening because of these greedy palm oil companies is that the locals are suffering and the animals are suffering. So the animals are forced and pushed into local areas because they don't have a forest of their own to just be in and eat from. And the locals are suffering because this is causing the conflict and their own livelihood is at stake.
Hmm. I think this monoculture on palm oil and certain other things, these are affecting species. Birds especially is very much affected. I know by monoculture, where they cannot find that. seed dispersal routes and the variety in trees that they used to have. But orangutans are especially affected by this. And we did a story explaining in depth about like what exactly palm oil is and how it is being used and how it requires vast swathes of land to do it. And especially in Indonesia, it is a very lucrative export as well, I think, that Indonesia does. So again, encroachment into the forest areas, and these orangutans basically don't have anywhere else to go. They're being shrunk into, further and further into the forest where they do not have the areas to venture out anymore. So um, it's, I think, very important that we um, take stock and see that if this level of plantations of palm oil is required, if there is an alternative to palm oil that can be that does not require such vast swathes of land. Um, I don't
I
know.
mean, I feel like with orangutans, and we've spoken about palm oil a lot, and
Mm,
the locals obviously are scared of the orangutans, and the orangutans need their food, so they come into the local spaces. But we've spoken about how palm oil is not essential anymore. I mean, we talk about how much palm oil is used in so many products, and that definitely can change because there are a lot of other agricultural produce, and there might be a lot of other ways for oil to be produced than actually cut down and only produce palm oil. And those alternate sources and alternate places also need to be looked into because there is definitely a way to digest. There's definitely a way to shift this problem. But again, it comes down to the government because the government needs to stop giving permits for more palm oil companies, but they're greedy, they're getting money, so they're like, yeah, let's do this. And at the same time, the government also needs to maybe tie up with other wildlife organizations to create awareness, have more coexistence, provide compensation. But the government really needs to step up in this case. Otherwise, um, there might be a day when there might be no ornaments left at all.
and I think that day is, will approach nearer and nearer if we don't take stock and take action right now. Um, I think also it's funny and interesting to note that here too, our first solution that we provide is relocation, basically. So that is again a banded solution. We are not stopping anything that we do, but why don't we relocate these orangutans to someplace else?
Yeah, and relocation has its own issues with all animals. I mean, relocation, one, they do not know how to forage for food there because they have to again do all their homework. They need to look through all the trees. Secondly, again, apes are also very territorial. So, if you relocate them to a different area, it is possible that the orangutans there might attack the relocated orangutan. So, it's not a great idea for either of those things to be done. And one of the things it says in this article is that the bulk of palm oil expansion was between 2001 and 2012 when powerful corporation descended and things really started to speed up. At the peak in West Kalimantan in 2012, an area of ancient forest, slightly less than the size of Greater London, was cleared in 1 year. So that is the speed of clearing of the forest, like the size of Greater London. That is being cleared in 1 year. And that is where the problem is coming in, that there is way too much deforestation, there's way too much demand for palm oil, and there is way too much lax on the government side. And the solutions are not up to the mark. Like the solutions are convenient, they're not something that can actually sustain the orangutans and the locals.
Yeah, the article says Indonesia is now the biggest palm oil producer in the world, responsible for 59% of global output, worth about 26 billion pounds a year, which is equivalent to like maybe 26 or 27, nearly $30 billion US dollars a year. That is a lucrative amount of money. And I don't know if there is a way that conservationists, us or anybody, can convince the business people, the politicians, that they're benefiting, who are benefiting from this trade. Otherwise, I don't know if there's a way, because that sounds like a very big amount of money. Um, $26 billion or 26 billion pounds a year.
Absolutely. I mean, that is way, way, way too much. Also, I think palm oil, it turns out to be cheaper and cost effective in terms of like growing it and selling it. But at the
Mm,
same time, I think what we're struggling with right now is finding a solution or an alternative that is at the same level, but not as damaging to the environment. So what it says is that these palm oil trees are just not as friendly to wildlife, but they are friendly only to like rats and snakes, because the rats feed off these kernels and the snakes feast on them. But any other animal do not get attracted or are not attracted to palm oil kernels. For rats, obviously, they're scavengers. They're attracted to mostly any kind of food. Also, this article from Guardian, it's a long article that talks about the different kinds of problems that the orangutans are going through. If we can, in the pinned comments, we will share this article with you. And it's a long article. It's a great read, and it talks about how the farmers are suffering, how the palm oil the companies are thriving, and the orangutans are barely surviving.
mm. Again, not great. Our solutions are not great either, but we will keep tracking this story to update you should there be any updates in this line of story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think that is something we will keep you updated. We really, really, really want to see this palm oil changing, and it's been a big, big problem, not just now, but for decades. So let's see if there's any fruitful and positive story that comes up on this topic.
mm,
Yeah, but moving on to the
yeah,
next topic.
I think this is one that I wanted to cover before, as well as we've gone through all our main headline and main topics. The Supreme Court considers bigger public participation in defining Aravalli, and I think we this is sort of an update from a previous story that we did. Supreme Court had just to remind people, Supreme Court had established sort of a panel in sort of defining the Aravalli Range, which was facing threats and pressures from mining and things like that. There was some 100 meter or 100 feet rule or something like that. But yeah, so this is a bit of an update on that. um, the Supreme Court has mandated an expert committee to precisely define the Aravalli Hills, emphasizing extensive public participation and consultation with domain experts and stakeholders. A bench led by Chief Justice Suryakant directed that the panel, while not unwieldy, must be functional and collaborate widely. Beyond defining the Aravalli, the committee is tasked with outlining a roadmap for permissible activities, including regulated mining in this ancient and ecologically sensitive mountain range. Comprising environmentalists, scientists, foresters, and mining specialists, this panel will operate under, the direct supervision of the Supreme Court. This move follows a previous November 2025 Supreme Court judgment, which, by narrowly defining the Aravalli, sparked significant public outcry and environmental concerns, prompting the court to stay its own ruling for reconsideration by a high powered panel. Again, I think this is good. We covered the outcry a few episodes ago. Um, this is good, and but I am interested also to know that is the mining activities being stayed, or like are the mining activities halted while this decision is being made?
Yeah, it
Is this
is.
something
There's
it
been a
is?
halt, there is a pause, and this is all because of a lot hue and cry with the public after the decision was taken.
That's
A
great.
very, very weak decision being taken that anything above 100 meters, you know, doesn't, only something about, I think it was something about only something above this would be considered a mountain, otherwise not. And the Rockies had hills that were all below that height. And this is great because public outcry can change things, and this is an example of how it's showing that it can change things. And it's great for the Supreme Court, like the court that big, to track back when the public cries and make changes. So we still do not know how the panel would work, if there would be enough insights, if it's actually like a panel that cares for the environment, does better things. But I think because there is public participation and consultation right now, I'm hoping that there is a better definition that will come out and the Aravallis would be protected.
Yeah, and I think the panel, from the sounds of it, again, as I said, like the longer it takes, the better, since the mining activities are halted. And also hoping like that they come up with a solution that works for everyone. I am a little bit hopeful here, because the panel actually consists of scientists, not only scientists, but like conservationists and environmentalists, and things like that, foresters and mining specialists are also there. Again, it is important that their view also be taken into account, but I think scientists, environmentalists, and foresters are the important people there, that I'm very glad that are also part of the panel. I'm not sure of the spread, like how many of mining people versus all the others, but hopefully it's an even spread across all these different experts.
Yeah, and I think one of the things was obviously I had to clear this, that new mining permits are being issued, mining where it's already going on is still going on, but the newer
Okay.
permits that could have been issued because of the vague definition, that is not happening. So all of that has been put on hold for anyone trying to exploit through the decision. But
Mhm.
it's great to see that there is a panel. We'll keep you updated on what their end decision would be, because that is what matters. Because if with all the public hue and cry and with all the consultation, also if the definition is not protective of the Aravallis, which is like the like the breathing lungs of that area in India, then it's not a great decision to even have that panel. So let's wait and watch for what the panel actually decides and gets back.
Right. Um. Cool. What's the next one you want to cover, Meghna?
Yeah, I'm going to do one short story. It talks about how the island community rallies to protect beloved dugongs, reviving declining seagrass. Seagrass beds around Thailand's Libong, a die-off, part of a complex nationwide decline. This devastated the island's dugong population, jeopardizing tourism and the local community. Frustrated by slow official response, locals are partnering with researchers and conservation groups to build citizen science and trial restoration. Tipusa Sangsawang remembers once lush meadows teeming with dugongs, now barren sandflats. She helped care for Mariam, an infant dugong whose 2019 death from plastic ingestion raised public awareness of marine pollution. Locals aim to revive seagrass ecosystems and protect coral dugong from dugongs. I think this is a great story that shows that you know they understand that the dugongs are dying and they're now trying to revive them. And dugongs are sea cows, they're just like manatees, and we've done this whole thing about how dugongs, where the line is drawn, and how the dugongs and manatees are two separate creatures, but they're both like very gentle sea cows. They need the seagrass to survive. And if the seagrass is declined, then the dugongs also go away. And seagrass is very essential because that also fertilizes soil. It has its own way of trapping carbon dioxide. There's a lot of things that the dugongs also when they feast on the seagrass at the time of way they move the seabed, all of that is very important when it comes to. So this is a good, positive story.
Yeah, I think people are often not aware, and I certainly wasn't until I read up more about this. That how much carbon capture the sea plants, not only the seagrass but sea kelp, the phytoplankton, and like seagrass, all these other sea plants together. How much carbon that they capture, you know it's greater than the land plants. And just because they're inside the sea does not mean that they capture any less carbon. In fact, it is the opposite. They capture more carbon than the plants on the land. um, it's very counterintuitive for us to think about um, day to day, but that is the truth. So having the seagrass ecosystem, having these manatees, as Meghna said, there's these dugongs and manatees. They are basically the herders of that particular patch of seagrass and things like that. So not having them, or
Yeah.
having them threatened, would be a pressure to the
Um,
entire ecosystem.
Absolutely. And the thing is also one of the things that is very important, it's not just the dirt of seagrass that is falling because of the dugong's deaths, but it's not just the dugong, it's for a lot of marine animals across the world die from plastic ingestion. And plastic is a big problem. So I think it's two problems that they have to take care of here. One is the seagrass and the plastic. And plastic is not just for dogs, it's for everything across the world, every animal out there, not just the animals, I mean, even for us, like we're consuming microplastics every day. So we have to make sure
Mm,
that we're not bring it to a level that it also affects us. It will affect us, like it's just a matter of time. But these are the two things that really need to be done. And I'm glad that the locals are now there's like locals, there's citizen science, and there's restoration, and there are trials, and there are researchers, and the conservation group. So I hope that we have more updates on this, and we see a very positive story coming from here, where the Dugongs actually survived and made a recovery.
true. um
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you want to
that's
add the short story before?
cool. I can do that. So this one is another cool piece of news as well. Again, we love ending on a more positive note. So this is comes from Kenya. This says Kenyan agency responds to protests rejecting proposed nuclear power plant near Lake Victoria. And again, just by reading the title, you can see how much impact citizen protests and citizen science can have on swaying a decision one way or the other. But I will read the summary here. Kenya's proposed KSH 500 billion, which is 3.85 billion US dollars, worth nuclear power plant in Saya County, um, targeting 2,000 megawatts, faces local protests. Residents fear contamination and ecological damage to Lake Victoria, which is vital for livelihoods. The Nuclear Power and Energy Agency, NUPI, pledged a robust educational campaign and assured no project progression without broad informed consent. President Ruto affirmed safety. However, Power Shift Africa PSA condemns the nuclear shift, arguing it diverts resources from faster, cleaner renewable energy. PSA notes nuclear facilities take over a decade to operate, contrasting with quick solar projects. This marks the project's second proposed site after rejection. Kilifi County's rejection, sorry. Um, Very good piece of news. Again, as I said, like how much citizen protests and citizen science and citizen advocacy, it plays a huge role in, you know, the- shaping the decisions of the government.
Yeah, and I think the thing to note also is that they have already kind of rejected one uh, proposal, which was the PPP
Mm,
country, and then they come up with another one. And the Power Shift Africa, which is the organization probably driving this movement, it condemns the nuclear shift because it one obviously saying that the resources are being diverted from cleaner renewable energy, and it also knows that nuclear facilities will take over a decade to operate in. So that means you put in 10 years, you use all of the space, then there's a risk of nuclear release. And better projects, faster projects, obviously, maybe not as efficient because they have to get more and more efficient. But it's great to know that public can have that voice, and that voice makes a difference. We've seen it in the Aravalli story, we've seen it in this, we've seen it in Nagaland and pangolins, we've seen it in a lot of stories today. So
mm,
you have that voice and you have that power to change. So if you have, if there's something in your area that you're not comfortable with wildlife and environment, your little movement can start a whole generation.
mm. Absolutely. I agree with that, and I think nuclear power is uh, one of the clean and renewable, not renewable, but like clean energy sources that is often touted, but it does come with a lot of waste and contaminations as well, and it has to be managed. Of course, the waste that comes out of a nuclear power plant is nuclear, and it has to be managed properly. So I think we did a story around like a nuclear site that has been proposed near the African penguin colony and things like that in one of the past episodes as well. But yeah, it's a um, positive story or a positive response from Kenya, and the Kenyan agency responsible for that. And that's what I was saying earlier as well, right? A lot of these countries, a lot of these developing nations are showing the way how it's done, how it can be done. Rejecting two proposed sites is probably unheard of in certain other countries. So it is willing to listen to the public. It is willing to listen to reason and listen to science, which is often not the case in the global political scenario these days.
Absolutely. And I think we need to have more and more of these stories coming out because the community engagement and the opposition is very important, and it shapes how the government, the courts, the law, everything is shaped. So, like if you care, they will have to care. So that is where it
Mm,
comes from. So like if things like the grind and the Faroese people are not ready to change, which is why the grind's not changing. But if the people are willing to change, then the government would have to hear, have to ban, have to legally enforce. And across places, things have changed. Like the hunting traditions have changed, beliefs have changed. Hunters have become protectors, and that is only because the community is actually worried and they are actually motivated for that change. So community do not take community and their togetherness and the motivation to change how the environment and wildlife matter.
mm, mm. Yeah, so I think that's all we had to say about that story, and I guess we can slowly start wrapping up um, today's episode, Meghna.
Yep, absolutely. I think we're talking about so many community initiatives and engagement. I would want to know if you're part of any community initiative and engagement. It could be as simple as maybe working in a shelter near your home, a dog or cat shelter, or working with some other NGO that works for the environment, or if you've been in like nationwide protests or like big movements, or if you've signed petitions. What have you signed? What motivated you to sign? And have you seen your petition or your work or your volunteering or your engagement actually turn to something fruitful for the environment and wildlife? We would love to know about all of this in the comments, so please do let us know.
Yeah, and as always, make sure that you subscribe to our channel and follow us on all the different social media platforms we are on. We do go live everywhere all at once. So wherever you follow us, you will be able to catch our latest live episode. Um, we have some exciting things planned in the future, so make sure you subscribe to get all those updates. And yeah, as Meghna said, leave a comment and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and like our work, and share with us your sort of views on how you would want this show to progress, and what other topics or scientists that you would like us to cover as well. And if you're listening to a recorded version of this episode, you can get this recorded version anywhere, whatever app you use for getting your podcasts. Do consider leaving us a rating and sharing this episode with someone who shares your view about conservation, wildlife, and climate change, or with someone who does not share your views about conservation, climate change, and so on and so forth, just so that they have a different view, they have a different exposure to a different view. But other than that, that's it for today, and we will see you next Sunday. Same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.